What's up, everyone? And today I'm bringing a deck for all my Krawlers. Now, Krawlers is a flip-based deck, which is pretty interesting because flip-based deck is like one of those kind of like unique subtypes, kind of like unions, spirits, tuners, and it's actually the first deck I ever owned. So before we get into the video, I just want to remind you to subscribe to the channel because 90% of the people watching this video are not subscribed. So without further ado, let's get right into it. First, I run 3 Krawler Galil. Galil, you can flip it to special summon 1 Krawler monster from your hand or graveyard in face-up attack or face-down defense position except Galil. Now all the Krawlers have this additional effect to if this face-up card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can special summon 2 Krawler monsters with different names from your deck in face-down defense position. So basically if you have multiple face-up in this, say they Raigeki your board, then you can just special summon a whole bunch more to replace that. So you don't really have to worry about your opponent. It's like destroying your face-up Krawlers with card effects. Well, if they do, you're just going to get a whole bunch of advantage off of that, so it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for them to do that. Next, I run 3 Krawler Spine. Krawler Spine, you flip it to target 1 monster in the field, destroy it. And like Galil has the effect to when it's destroyed by a card effect, you special summon 2 Krawlers face-up or face-down from your deck. I also run 3 Krawler Receptor. Krawler Receptor is your searcher for the deck. When it is flip summoned, you can add 1 Krawler monster from your deck to your hand. Also run the 2 Axon. When it's flip summoned, you can target a spell or trap on the field, destroy it, so it's your spell and trap destruction. I also run the 1 Krawler Ranveer. Ranveer, when it's flip summoned, you can target 2 Krawler monsters in your graveyard and add to your hand. So it's a little bit of a recursion. You only play one of it because this doesn't come up all the time. This only comes up during the later parts of the game. Next, I run the 1 Morphing Jar. Morphing Jar is easily one of the most powerful flip monsters in the entire game. Minus like Cyber Jar, Fiber Jar. Basically just the jar monsters in general are the best flip monsters in the entire game. When Morphing Jar is flipped, both players discard the hands, then both players draw 5 cards. So the one cool thing with Krawlers, basically you can set all your spells, traps, and your Krawler monsters, and then if this is a face down on the field, you can use an effect to flip it face up, and basically just get like a new hand to do even more, which is very, very powerful. And for the longest time, I've been trying to find a way to kind of power up flip monsters. Because the one downside to flip monsters is that they're just slow. Basically, their effects only activate on the second turn if you're going first. Which makes it really slow and almost unplayable. However, I actually found a way to kind of help counteract that. Next, I run 3 Barrier Statue of Drought. Drought I run because you definitely want to run 3 of it because it really hurts your opponent a lot because it restricts both players to special summoning Earth, which in Krawlers, that's really all you run. And some people might be confused as to why I run 3 exactly. Well, the cool thing with Krawlers is that the field spell essentially gives you an extra summon. So basically you can summon Drought and then special summon one of your Krawler monsters, which is pretty cool. That and what you want to do is slow the game down, which barrier statues are really good at that because they lock your opponent into special summoning 1 type. And by locking this, you make get a few turns before they can actually do anything. And for a flip-based deck, you're going to need those few turns. Next, I run the 1 World Legacy World Lance. World Lance, during damage calculation, if a Link monster battles a monster a quick effect, you get this card, the opponent's battling monster loses 3,000 attack. So, in pretty much all scenarios, it's going to go down to 0 attack and destroy itself and they take damage. Originally, I had this at a higher number, but I figured Drought is a much better option over Lance because this can actually stop your opponent a lot better than the World Lance. Moving on to the hand traps, I run 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, and the 2 Effect Veiler. Now, Effect Veiler you can swap out for Imperm, Lancia, whatever. Originally, I actually had Nibiru in there, but Nibiru conflicts with Drought, so you can't run Nibiru if you have Drought. Moving on to the spells. I run 3 World Legacy and Shadow. World Legacy and Shadow is, in my opinion, one of the best field spells in the game for an archetype because it has so many effects. The first one, all Krawler monsters on the field gain 300 attack and defense. Once per turn, you special summon 1 level 2 or lower Krawler monster, level 2 or lower insect monster from your hand in face up or face down defense position. So it's a double summon essentially. And if your flip monster is destroyed by battle with an opponent's monster, you can send that opponent's monster to the grave. Not destroy, send. So it's got removal, protection, attack boost, and an extra summon all in one card. It's very powerful. I also run the one Mystic Mine. Because it is a flip-based deck, you're going to probably go in a little bit slower, so if you have Mystic Mine, go in second. This can definitely really force your opponent to play it at a slower game until you can get enough of a board. I also run the one Terraforming because you really want to see that Shadows. I run the one Monster Reborn because Monster Reborn is just that good of a card. I run 3 Book of Moon. Yeah, you probably haven't seen Book of Moon in a deck in a long while. Well, Book of Moon works in this deck pretty well because it helps you recycle some of your effects, mainly the Morphing Jar. You can use it on your opponent's monsters to disrupt plays or your own monsters. So one play is kind of similar to how Fearless Tri-Brigade works. Is let's say you have a Buried Statue of Drought on the field and your opponent summons a monster that has more than 1,000 attack. You can Book of Moon that, and considering they already normal summoned their one monster for the turn and they probably can't special summon any more monsters, they're probably just going to have to pass there, and then you can go into a monster that can attack over it. And then you're basically sitting pretty at that point. Now next, it's a card that I have been looking for. For the longest time, like, what we need, what flip monsters need, is a spell card that turns your flip monsters into normal effect monsters. And for a while, I didn't think there was one, because the only ones I knew were traps. But I actually found one, and it is called the Book of Tayu. If you're running a flip deck, or flip-based deck, that's a mandatory at 3. Book of Tayu, flip one face-down monster on the field to face-up attack position. Not only is it not once per turn, but essentially turns your monsters into regular monsters. For example, let's say you have Morphing Jar on the field. You can set Morphing Jar, activate Book of Tayu, flip face up, and use this effect. So basically, on your opening turn, you can activate Morphing Jar. You can also use any of your other crawlers, which is very powerful, and it really speeds up this deck a lot. So this is definitely a mandatory in every flip-based deck. Moving on to the traps. I run 3 World Legacy Pawns. Pawns, you can target one face-down defense position monster, one face-down monster you control, change it to face-up attack or defense position. And as a secondary effect, you shuffle a crawler monster from your grave into the main deck, then target one face-up monster you control, change it to face-down defense position. So it's a Book of Moon and a Book of Tayu all in one card. The one disadvantage for Pawns is that it is a trap, so you're not going to be using this until your opponent's turn. Rather, Book of Tayu, you can use it immediately. Next, I run 3 Junk Sleep. Jump Sleep, if your opponent normal special summons a monster, you can change all face-down defense position monsters you control to face-up attack position. And during the end phase, you can change all monsters you control to face-down defense position. I would actually say Junk Sleep is worse than Pawns and Book of Tayu, but you still need it because in the hand you don't open Pawns or Tayu. It's going to be very difficult. That way you at least always have some way to basically flip your flip monsters face up and then back face down to use the effects again. Because Morphing Jar is not a once per turn at all, so you can use that multiple times a turn. And depending on what deck your opponent is playing, that can really hurt your opponent as well. Moving on to the extra deck. I run the 3 Krawler Krawler. Now, Krawler gains a certain amount of effects depending on how many Krawler monsters you control. If you control 2, all monsters you control gain turn attack and defense, which is really important for Buried Statue of the Drought. 4, your opponent's cards and effects cannot be activated during the battle phase. And 6, your monsters can attack directly. So basically, if you have 6 Crawlers on the field, you can attack directly with all of them. And the cool thing about X Krawler Qualiarch is if this face-up card is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, while it's its owner's control, you can target one Crawler monster with a different name. You can target 2 Crawler monsters with different names in your graveyard, special summon, and face-down defense position. Now, Crawlers luckily have 3 different link monsters. I also run the 3 Neurogos. Neurogos, Crawler monsters card points to, cannot be destroyed by battle. They gain 300 attack, and if they battle an opponent's monster, any battle damage inflicted to your opponent is doubled. If this face-up card is destroyed by battle, it leaves the field because of opponent's card effect while it's in its owner's control. Target 2 Crawler monsters with different names in your graveyard, special summon them. So that is pretty cool. I also run the 3 X Krawler Synapses. Now, Synapses has the same first effect to where the Crawler's monsters card controls, or Crawler monsters card points to cannot be destroyed by battle. They gain 300 attack. However, they can make up to 2 attacks during each battle phase. And the same if it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you summon 2 Crawlers from grave. Now, if you have basically 6 Crawlers of between these 9 right here, so let's say you got 3 Qualiarch and 3 Neurogos, that is essentially game. Your opponent cannot activate cards effects during battle phase. You're getting an insane amount of attack. You can attack directly, double attack, double the damage. Basically, that's just game right there. Next, I run 2 Subterra Behemoth Fiendus. Fiendus gains attack equal to the combined levels of all Subterra monsters you control. All Subterra monsters used for its Link Summon, which doesn't really matter because you don't run any Subterras, but you may like for its next couple effects. During your main phase, you can send one flip monster from your deck to graveyard, and if you do, special summon one monster from your hand in face down defense position to the zone this card points to. You can only use this effect of Subterra Behemoth Fiendus once per turn. Once per turn, if a monster this card points to is flipped face up, add one flip monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. The one cool thing about it is Fiendus is an earth monster. The crawlers, their materials are basically 2 crawlers, 2 insects, 2 earth monsters. So it's really, basically you can use this effect and then just go into the synapses essentially, which makes these next 2 cards pretty important. I run the 1 Nightmare Phoenix and the 1 Gaia Saber, the Lightning Shadow. Now, these ones I mainly run because they're earth, so basically, let's say you have a non-earth on the field. What you can do is basically link those into one of these 2, and then you can link these ones away. So it's essentially to clear the field so you can have like a total of 6 crawlers. And lastly, I run the 1 Access Code and the 1 Appaloosa to round out the extra deck. Let me know, what do you think of this deck profile? Do you think the new book of Taiyu that I added to it's pretty good? Let me know in the comments and I'll see you next time I make. Bye.